Hello guys, and welcome to Eye on the Storm, a very exciting episode because as you can see we are joined by two very important people. We'll introduce them in just a second, but in case you aren't familiar with our show, really quick, let me tell you what it's about. This is Eye on the Storm. It is a Heroes of the Storm talk show. Heroes of the Storm is a Blizzard hero brawler game, which has just officially launched. It's no longer in alpha or beta, although this show has been around since then. Gilly, you are my co-host. I am introducing you, and I am handing off to you to say what you would like about the show.
Awesome. Well, of course, guys, the format of this show is that we'll bring on guest experts. We'll talk a little bit about the community. We're going to talk a little bit about the game as well. This week, we'll be talking about the Eternal Conflict, which was announced at the Mayhem Begins event on Saturday. We also often do character spotlights. We have a Q&A as well throughout. If you want to ask questions of any of our guests, just feel free to tweet us with the hashtag StormShow, all one word. And then we'll close out with a play session with the community and a community spotlight as well. We started the show because we wanted to eventually learn enough about the game to become casters, and we've since then done that. We now cast the Heroes Hype Amateur Series, which is really amazing. But of course, we are on the Misscliks channel. Anna, what is the Misscliks channel all about?
Well, there's a lot to Misscliks, but very basically, it's a community and a live streaming channel that's built around the idea that we would like to uplift and provide support for female role models in geek and gaming culture, not because we don't love our male counterparts, but because there just aren't enough female voices in gaming, and we hope we can just make whatever voices there are a little bit louder. So that's why you see Gilly and I here, and we are joined by guests from all over the Heroes community, and today, very especially, we are joined by two members of Blizzard, the Blizzard family. Guys, could you introduce yourselves and tell people a little bit about what you do at Blizzard?
Sure. Well, I'm John Hodgson. I'm a technical designer on the Heroes team, and that means I do a lot of implementation of Heroes. I used to do some hero design. Now I'm mostly working on systems and really doing a lot of service for whatever the designers at large need.
I'm Hugh Shelton. I'm a senior game designer. I was lucky enough to join the team back in September of last year, so I got to join in as the thing was building up. I actually got into the alpha before I'd started on the team, which was pretty cool.
Cool.
I'm doing hero design here. I'm working with the other hero designers, giving them feedback, helping to drive what heroes we're picking moving forward. That's my main focus, and I do a little bit of working with the live balance team. Not a lot, they do all the hard work, but at least I'm synced up with them for what they're working on.
So I've never been a game developer. I've been in esports a long time, so I'm always on the other side of the game, the people who play it and the stories that revolve around that. So when I hear things like, I'm part of the implementation, or I'm part of the live balance team, or, you know, these words don't mean a whole lot to me as a lay person. So in the most simplified form, how would you describe what you do on a day-to-day basis, both of you?
So I like to describe being a technical designer means I do all my own stunts. Which means given tasks to design things, it could be heroes, systems, maps. Different technical designers do different things, and we work to after designing it, putting it into the game somehow through code, through script. And there's a lot of everything in the game eventually has to go through that process to go into the computer somehow. So.
That's where the mystery is for me. I don't. Yeah. The between the idea and the computer, you know, what shows on my screen. That's the big mystery right there.
All of the sound and the art and the design of our various game elements go through technical designers to actually put them in the game, and we work with engineers who work on sort of the very basic or the very base systems, the platform that the entire game runs on. In order to make all that happen.
Cool.
And I'm more focused on the paper design side of things, so I am working on putting together the ability kits for these heroes. So some of the things that I've worked on have not come out yet, we haven't announced them yet, but it's the full hero kit. It's the abilities, their trait, their basic abilities, their heroics, their talent tree, all of that put together, the gameplay side of the things. And I work with other hero designers that are also designing their own heroes as we move forward.
Cool. Do you guys get assigned those heroes, or do you get to pick ones from the Blizzard universe that you really like?
It's a big process going through, making sure that we're checking off all the boxes that we want to check off, looking at the heroes that we already have that are in the game, all the huge roster of nearly 200 characters that we could put into the game, and then trying to figure out, working with our leadership to figure out what are the characters that best fit into those slots, both for like just for the lore standpoint, but then also from the gameplay standpoint. What kind of mechanics do we want to bring into the game? What type of character archetypes do we want to bring into the game?
And what gets us fired up?
Yeah.
Like that often determines who is sort of assigned sort of primary design on the character, is somebody who's really excited about the character.
Cool.
Kent worked on the Butcher, is something he was really excited about. So yeah.
Well, speaking of the Butcher,
Yeah.
we have you here today to talk about him, as well as the rest of the content that was announced in the Eternal Conflict, which was kind of like an expansion pack of a bunch of themed content coming to Heroes very soon. And it's all about Diablo focus. And so what was announced with that was the Butcher as a hero. We also recently just had Joanna also announced as well. Or is it Johanna? I've heard so many different things.
Johanna, Joanna.
What is it?
What is it? I think it's Joanna.
Yeah.
Johanna?
Johanna.
See,
He says Johanna, I say Johanna. Hannah.
This is a really important thing to me because Anna and Anna often get mixed up for my name. So I don't want to do that to Johanna/Johanna.
Trick will tell us. She actually, yeah. Okay, I was going to go into this story about the name, but I don't actually think it's...
You don't actually want to go.
For the longest time, we just called her Crusader, right?
Oh.
Crusader, and that has always happened with the Diablo heroes, that they've been Crusader, Witch Doctor, Demon Hunter. In fact, their game files are actually named often Crusader, Witch Doctor, Demon Hunter, or Barbarian. And it's only pretty late in the process that we found a name for them, and she came in pretty late. So that is part of the reason why we haven't agreed on the pronunciation.
But Trick saved us.
What did he say?
Right there.
Johanna. Okay. See, I was right.
Han. Okay,
Han.
like Han Solo.
Like Han Solo.
Johanna.
Okay.
She is that badass. She's like Han Solo.
Got it.
Awesome. So as far as the Diablo focus, was that exciting for you guys? Are you big Diablo fans?
Yes.
Yeah.
Easy question to answer. And we know that there's going to be more to come. So this kind of format of the expansion pack, as we've heard it called, or this collection of themed content, do you think we're going to be seeing that be the tradition going forward?
I think we'd really like to be able to do that. It's something that we're trying. We're really pushing hard on Diablo. We're pushing hard on Diablo themed maps and obviously the Diablo characters. Maybe there will be some surprise mechanics in our maps that you'll be able to see. And we would like to be able to expand that to Warcraft, StarCraft, and beyond.
Oh, StarCraft themed map, please.
Yeah, I think if we can put in requests, I think StarCraft should definitely be next. We got a lot of Warcraft heroes.
For sure. We've been hearing that feedback a lot, and we want to get StarCraft heroes in the game as much as you guys do. So
awesome. How did that idea come about? Because that's not something we've really seen ever in games that are kind of like this. The idea of an expansion pack type thing where it's themed content of a bunch of different, of different types of content, all from the same theme. How did that idea come about?
Well, I can't say for certain.
It's just an idea that we wanted to have a different kind of content drop instead of just a hero every 3 weeks, which people are really excited about. We have a map. The game is very much about getting people excited about the Blizzard universe, characters that they've known and loved, grown up with, played with, and sort of celebrating something. It could be the same way that Hearthstone does, right? Like Curse of Naxxramas. People who've done that raid, they know the bosses, they know the mechanics. It's wow, it's really geeked up. And even people who don't know that, like it's thematic and it provides a place to design around. So it's the same with us, I think, where we get a lot of ideas from a big theme drop and we start thinking about it on a larger scale, like how does everything fit in? How do these characters, what kind of characters do we want to do? What kind of maps do we want to do? What kind of gameplay do we want on those maps that feels like, in this case, Diablo, or in the future, Warcraft, Starcraft, whatever. It's a boon for both us as designers and I think for the community as well.
Well, I know that we only have a little bit of your time tonight, so I want to make sure we get to kind of deep dive into what was announced. So let's start off with the hero, the Butcher, that we got. And I have a few visuals here, but why don't you guys tell us just the basics? We know what kind of assassin he is and all of that.
Okay, so the Butcher is the character that's going to come out of the shadows, and he's going to lock somebody down, and he's capable of doing a lot of burst damage when he does do that. Besides being able to do burst damage, he can actually sustain himself up with his basic ability kit. He's able to hook onto an enemy with one of his abilities, and as he's attacking him, he's life-stealing huge amounts. And that's something that, as an opponent, you're really going to have to deal with stuns or other forms of CC, so that he's not just completely refilling his health bar. He's able to combo really well with some of our other heroes that are already in the game, such as Tyrande, who can follow up the Butcher's stun, or Diablo, who can also follow it up there. Or on the other side, if you want to pair him up with an Uther, who is able to give him a divine shield as he's going in, so then he can get his lifesteal going.
You know, I was thinking what was truly terrifying about Tyrande is she picks Shadowstalk. They can't see the Butcher, but he can see you, and then he can charge in out of a vent or the bushes or something like that. It's truly a terrifying moment. I think from the outset, the Butcher, we really wanted to capture the terror aspect, because anybody who played Diablo 1 knows when you roll up into that room where the Butcher is, it's one of the scariest moments in all of Diablo 1, and that's the way we wanted to take the character and the mechanics, where he's coming after you, he won't let up. He's like an axe murderer. It's like Friday the 13th. And
you definitely get that feeling depending on the type of character that you're playing too.
For sure. If
you are on the other side playing a Tyrande, or if you're playing a Jaina, it's
rough. If you don't have a team to back you up, you're probably going to get turned into fresh meat.
Yeah.
So as a
stacks.
Yeah. So as a melee assassin, is he going to be someone that you have to be really careful with? Like, you know, we've seen some of these big damage dealers be the ones that you have to make sure they stay back and stay protected. But I'm hearing a lot of this, you know, lore about the Butcher that, you know, if you see him, you're basically dead. So what's the balance there in terms of like play style?
Well, that makes me think of one thing I should have brought up before, is his trait, which is the fresh meat, which I didn't mention, but that is, you're either able to farm that up through hero kills or through minion kills, and as you're doing this, you're increasing your basic attack capability. So that's something that you want to do. So once you do have that built up and you're playing on the other side, I mean, you'll see a Butcher, he's not going to be able to skirmish with the other team quite as well as any of those ranged damage dealers, and he is pretty much all in once he goes in. He doesn't have an escape like Illidan is able to escape somewhat with his metamorphosis or with his dash or anything like that. So once
he does pretty good in 1v1s, right?
He does really good in 1v1s, especially if the other person doesn't have CC. So
it almost doesn't matter either who he's 1v1ing. He does very strong in any 1v1 situation. It's when there's more of a team that gets brought together that it kind of gets complicated, and it really depends on the team composition.
But he does fall into kind of the same category as some of our other melee assassins when it comes to, like, if you're behind, you're going to feel that as the Butcher, because it's about bursting somebody down. It's about taking somebody out of the fight quickly, and if you're not able to get over that hump in the beginning, it can be difficult for you.
He provides a little bit of utility for his team too, though, with his Q, with the axe cleave, and his Lamb for the Slaughter too. He's not entirely. He's a very selfish character in the sense that you want to axe someone to death, but there's a lot of team play considerations there too.
Yeah, if you're not able to burst somebody down, there are a few other things that you can bring to the table as the Butcher.
Cool.
I had a question. With the heroes that we have now, who do you think would like playing the Butcher based on what they like now? Like, is it something where if you like playing Kerrigan, you probably like playing Butcher or something else? What can you tell us about that?
I would say that if you like playing melee assassin, so Illidan, Thrall, Kerrigan's she's a little bit more fragile, but her all-in gameplay style and stun combo can feel a little bit similar. So you might, so you might be happy here as well. So when you're going down that road,
more like a Kerrigan kind of blows you up instead of an Illidan who definitely blows you up, but he blows you up over a little bit longer period of time.
This sounds like a hero for you, Anna.
I know. I at first didn't have this huge connection because the reason that I got so into Kerrigan was just because I love StarCraft and Kerrigan's one of my favorite video game characters of all time. But then she kind of formed my playstyle into this like you said, all in or overly ham.
He's all in.
Yeah, all the time. And so yeah, as now that I'm learning more about the Butcher, I'm pretty excited to play him. But I want to hear more. We heard about this at the Mayhem Begins event, and you just mentioned it about the fresh meat stacks. Can you tell us kind of in a detailed way how the meat stacks work and how people would go about gathering them and how that affects your play?
Yeah, so I think baseline, he gets up to 25 stacks of this. As the Butcher, you go out, you kill minions nearby, they drop meat, and you're able to walk over them and pick them up.
It's so gross and awesome. Like, you're picking up gross meat.
You are the Butcher, so
that's what you do.
Yeah, you're from Diablo. It makes sense, I suppose. So you're picking these up, and it's increasing your attack damage, and so that you're able to deal more per strike, per hit. If you do die, you lose all of these stacks, and now you have to start over again. So it's something that you're dealing with the whole game of farming them up. Unlike
our other quests, we call them quest mechanics, right? Where you can get stacks of stuff.
Yeah.
Like Nazebo's death ritual is something that, and Gazlo's. Well, salvage is a bit different. Salvage, you immediately get the benefit.
Well, yeah, that's
but like gaining stacks and stacks on stacks of stuff. What's his name? Asmodan's Taste for Blood, for example, farming up the Q damage. It can take place over the course of a whole game, and they don't lose the stacks. Butcher does lose them, although I think we've tuned it such that it's actually really fun to, even when you die, it's a loss, but it's not really a huge loss. Yeah. You can definitely jump back in the lane, and it doesn't take you too long to get back up to full power again. Yeah, and it's actually kind of it's really neat gameplay where you have this little thing to do every time you're back into a fight, or you can immediately rejoin your team for a team fight at a little bit less power, but you don't spend that time in lane farming. Or even if a fight's happening at your core, you just died. If you get back into the fight and you manage to wipe the team, you're getting meat from the enemy heroes also, that's true. And you're getting more from the enemy heroes, so you're able to build it back up pretty quickly. You can build it from merc camps, from anywhere. So you have a lot of options to get back to your max stacks.
Cool. Well, I really want to have lots of time to talk about the new Battlefield as well, Battlefield of Eternity. But really quick, let's talk about the two heroics that the Butcher shows, the Furnace Blast and the Lamb to the Slaughter. Let's start with Furnace Blast.
So Furnace Blast, this is a PBAOE that you click and it activates around it, and it waits a little while before it goes off, what is really cool about this is if you go ahead and you use the name change, so I wrote it down because the name changed right before he went out. But if you use your Ruthless Onslaught, which is the new name, if you use that, and then you activate Furnace Blast as you are running, you can do it mid-charge so that by the time you time it so that right as you hit an enemy and you stun them, your Furnace Blast is going off and you're doing this big AoE damage. That's the most basic combo that you can get out of these two abilities, and it's really satisfying. It adds to his capabilities of taking down a single target, but it's also, since it is AoE damage, it's good to position yourself right in the middle of the fight with the Butcher and have this go off.
Yay! Right in the middle is where I like to be.
It's like you're this huge bomber, right? And you have this bomb ticking on you, and it's going to go off, and you just run right in the middle of the fight and it explodes.
What's the cooldown like on it?
Gosh, do you remember off the top of your head?
I don't remember the exact time of.
But is it like a pretty long or pretty short?
It's a pretty medium cooldown. Okay. It's definitely not like the 120-second mosh pit, and it's not. Okay. It's no 40-second take down towers and towns that one alt might be.
You only have only Phoenix is 4 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And then Lamb to the Slaughter, which it offers a pretty different gameplay style, and it's also a pretty good counter pick against certain heroes like Illidan. If you manage to get it on him, you throw out this post which will attach to a single enemy near it base at the level 10 version of it. It'll attach to a single enemy, and that enemy is then stuck to the post. If they try to do a dash, they'll get pulled back into the area. And they can move around freely within this little space, but they can't go beyond it. And so,
the inspiration for that ability, I remember Ken was telling me, I can't remember. Do you know that bit in Jurassic Park where they put a goat on the post and then like?
Oh my gosh! Was that was the inspiration?
Yeah,
Jurassic
yeah.
Park?
It was literally,
oh my gosh!
and then it just raises up, and there's like So that's kind of what it's like to fight the Butcher alone. So don't do it.
This picture that we have is of 3 heroes being grabbed by the post. Is that a later talent that you can get?
That's the Heroic Mastery at level 20 that you can get for it. Is you can hook up a bunch of enemies to it.
That is, I think that's one of the most like horrific, like terrifying abilities in the game for me. Like, it's ruthless. So I think that you guys have done a really good job of making the Butcher, like you said, capturing kind of the horror of the Butcher, because that idea of being like suddenly magically chained to a post while this like abomination can just rip you apart is really scary.
Yeah, especially if you're playing Brightwing and you get hooked up to
don't
this
even
post,
say that.
and then you can't blink it out.
Why? Why would you say that?
I don't know. I just think that's the right thing to say.
Given Brightwing's attitude, I think she and the Butcher can become fast friends. Actually.
Yeah, he will kill them and she'll eat their entrails.
Exactly.
Look, see, Anna, we can play them together.
Oh, that's really sweet.
I love my crazy little adorable fairy dragon.
Well, I know that, again, we have limited time, so Gilly, anything else on the Butcher before we move on to Battlefield of Eternity?
No, I think we should probably move on. We only have a little bit.
Okay, so where should we start?
Well, this is the first Blizzard-themed map, correct?
Correct.
All right, cool. And so why don't we start with the Battlefield mechanic? How are the Immortals going to work?
Do you want to give the overview?
Okay, so how do we describe this? So the map mechanic starts some minutes into the game, and what happens is a huge angel and a huge demon rise up, and then they just start Dragon Ball Z fighting in the middle of the map, basically. It's this epic battle. It's sort of taking place in that the Battlefield of Eternity space that you saw in Reaper of Souls, I think. Although this is more of a Nexus-ified version of like Heaven and Hell crashing together.
This is the first time that I think Heaven and Hell have been on the same map together.
Art did want to play that how cool that this is, and like really flex her chops on making some really neat environments there. So one side is the angel side, and one side is the demon side. You have themed minions, and you have this angel and demon fighting in the center. The player's job is to assist. Either if you're on the angel side, you have to try to kill the demon, and if you're on the demon side, you're trying to kill the angel. But while that's happening, the other team is trying to do the opposite. So it's this interesting mechanic where you and your team have to decide: is it worth our time to try and kill the enemy immortal, or should we defend ours? Defending has a lot of benefits. Like, your immortal is casting spells in the area. They're dealing this big stun knockback ability, and then they have another stun that sort of bombards the area in small patches. And you have to face those abilities if you're trying to fight the enemy immortal. So there's definitely a home advantage, but there's also you also want to win, and the only way to win is to DPS down the enemy immortal. And then once one of the immortals is killed, the mortal that lived gets some health proportional to how much health they had when the fight ended. So even if you're unable to sort of win that fight in the middle, dealing some damage to the enemy immortal is still worthwhile because it means that it'll sting less later when they come into the lane and start destroying your towns and towers and structures. Then they have similar abilities that they use during the fight. They have big stuns, and they hit pretty hard. But otherwise, they just sort of beeline toward the core.
I've heard this kind of compared to Haunted Mines in terms of what, the cost versus benefit of either taking away from your enemies or gathering for yourself, that kind of stuff. How is it the same and different from something like Haunted Mines?
So on Haunted Mines, I mean, you're both down there and you're collecting skulls, and maybe it seems like at a certain point, one team will decide, okay, we've got enough skulls, or okay, there's too many members on our team down. We can't really contest the golem, so we're not gonna head there and try to fight for it. Whereas on this map, pretty much, even if you only have 3 members up and the other team still has 5 members up, you're trying to fight at the immortal. You're able to defend your enemies while fighting on top of your allied immortal because he's doing all these big AoE stuns, AoE knockbacks. So he's basically like another hero fighting on your side. So it really helps even up those disadvantages. And like what John was saying before, all the damage that you do to this boss matters when it finally starts to push down your lane and start to take your keeps and your structures and push towards your core because it's permanent. So even if the other team is ahead of you, they're going to finish off the boss before you can, you're there and you get 10% of its health down, that could help out. One other thing is that we gave this boss ranged attacks when it is pushing in the lane, which feels pretty differently than the Grave Golem, just because the Grave Golem is always right up against your gate, right up on your structures, whereas as long as the Immortals have a shield on them, they will continue to do ranged attacks. And that's just something else that ranged characters defending have a bigger advantage there than melees do.
And I think that's similar. I heard that there are new mercenary camps and a little bit different siege giants, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, both of the camps are different. So there's a summoner camp. I'm not really sure which one corresponds to which, though. I guess the summoner camp corresponds to the night camps, I guess.
Yeah, the summoner's more of the night camp.
Yeah. So the summoner camp is a summoner demon guy, and he's summoning these sort of hellhounds. And the way that he works is sort of like it's almost like one of the spiders off Tomb of the Spider Queen, where if you kill his hounds, then he'll just summon more hounds, and then he continues to summon guys as he goes down the lane. So you have to deal with him in a specific way. You have to try to kill the summoner first, and the summoner is pretty beefy, so killing him first and then dealing with his hounds is the way to do it. Definitely just soaks a lot of tower shots and is a big meat shield for your own minions as you're pushing down a lane. And then the other guys are the sort of spear throwers. I don't know their exact name, but they take the place of the siege giants. There's 3 of them, and they outrange towers, right?
Yep.
And they deal pretty good damage to structures.
Cool.
But it's something that we really wanted to try to expand. We knew that those sort of mechanics worked, especially in a kind of map where pushing is the name of the game. So, and we want to continue to explore different kinds of mercenary camps, especially as maps change, what their objectives might be.
I'm really excited about that.
These merc camps play a pretty important role on this map too, because both of them are able to push lanes pretty well. Since the summoners are just continually bringing back more of their hounds, and they're able to keep respawning them for free, basically. And since there are 3 of the spear guys that are outranging towers and pushing them, if you capture these merc camps and then you start going to the immortal fights and the other team doesn't respond, it's going to cause a lot of damage to the base. So it is putting the enemy team, it's forcing them to decide between fighting a 4v5 or just letting the wave push all the way to the base.
And it does take longer to respond on this map than it does on Haunted Mines too, because Haunted Mines is very small, and whereas Battlefield of Eternity, even though it is 2 lanes, definitely quite a distance to get from one end of the map to the other.
And we also see the siege giants on Haunted Mines being used mostly for defense rather than offense a lot of the time.
What would you say are heroes and talents that are going to particularly shine on this map, just looking at it so far in the playtesting that you've done?
So there's a lot of talents that you might not end up picking on other maps just because you're able to back easily or you're able to hit the well easily, and you're not often in these long sustained fights. But these fights in the middle of the map with these immortals can go on for a really long time. So anything that's making your mana for your abilities cheaper is going to be really good to sustain through these fights. Any sort of health regen that's not based on collecting health globes is going to be really useful as well. So sustained talents in particular get a big value add on this map.
And for the immortals themselves, DPS really is the name of the game. Anything that buffs attack speed, procs on attacking, and having certain characters like Avala just be able to continuously shoot down the immortals and try to do as much damage to them as possible. We even, I don't know if we still have this problem, but we definitely had some surprise picks early in development with Gazlo at going Robo Goblin. He actually does extra damage to the immortals, and so having a Gazlo continue to beat on the immortal and then have his turrets set up in this sort of impossible zone so that the enemy is having a really difficult time dealing with both the turrets and the immortal stuns on defense. Like, he's actually a really neat hero on that map.
Cool.
Yeah, John touched on Vala. The auto attack build on Vala is even more viable on this map than maybe it is on a lot of the other maps, since the AoE is so strong most of the time. But here, if you're buffing up that single target damage, it can be useful.
That's my favorite build on her, so yay!
Yeah. And other talents that increase your single target DPS also are really strong.
Cool.
That's really cool, because a lot of times we have a lot of those heroes who have the capabilities for those builds, and we're starting to see them a little bit more. So I like that maybe we're going to see them, really swing into play for that map specifically. Like, we've seen them a little bit more on Zeratul and Falstad as well. So it'll be really neat to see.
Yeah. Right now, burst compositions are really popular in competitive play. Like, everybody loves Kael'thas and Jaina. But I think this map, I don't want to speak too early because we're often wrong here. But sustained DPS is going to be really interesting on this map if you're interested in taking the main objective.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well,
and they do push down separate lanes, right? They don't just always go down the same lane.
So they choose which lane to go down based on which lane has taken the least amount of damage. So if a fort is already down in one lane, it's going to go to the other lane and push down that, which we put that in through the development process to help with snowballing through gameplay. It reduces that, because now these things have to go a little bit further if you get immortals back to back.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, I know that we've kept you a little bit longer than I know you had time for. So any closing thoughts or things that you really hope that once we get into this map, or as we anticipate this map, or this hero, anything in Eternal Conflict, kind of the things that you hope we will watch for and you hope we will enjoy on all of this content?
Well, I'm just really looking forward to seeing all these tournament games being played on the new map. I'm looking forward to seeing the Butcher being played competitively, see if he finds his way in there where some of our other melee assassins haven't and some of our melee assassins have. So it'll be interesting to see what players do and see where he breaks through, and see if he does have an impact on some of the casters that we have dominating a little bit. And then, yeah, it's just every time we add a new hero to the game or a new map to the game, that's usually the most exciting time for me to be watching the tournaments that are going on, just to see how players are responding to it and seeing what it does to the game.
I'm really excited for the whole Eternal Conflict as a whole. Like, this push is definitely part of it, and we definitely want to do more. And depending on the feedback that we get from the community, we'll see if this is something really worth pursuing. That we wanted these big theme drops that people get really excited about.
Well, I'm certainly excited. What about you, Gilly?
Oh, I'm so pumped. I love the idea. I love the idea that it's kind of like an MMO expansion, and we've seen some MMO mechanics in it as well. And it's just not just a MOBA style game. It's really something that's completely its own, which I think is really neat. And I love the idea of bringing in themed content. I think it's such a cool idea. I'm really pumped.
Well, where can people keep their eye out for more information about this, or where can people follow you guys to stay in touch with you?
Well, I suppose you can check out here'sthestorm.com, obviously. Keep an eye on the goings-on. We will constantly post new... we're always working on better communication with the community. We're going to be talking about all kinds of things that the community really wants feedback, or has really given strong feedback on, and new Eternal Conflict stuff, of course. You can reach me, John, at BlizzJohnZ on Twitter.
And for both of us, you'll see most of what we're doing in the patch notes every time we release a new patch. So that's our biggest way to communicate with you what we're doing, which is pretty awesome. And I do have a Twitter, but I don't use it much. So you can look it up if you want to, but I probably won't respond to anything.
You can forward all the questions for Hugh.
Yeah, you can forward them to me.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Yes, I can finally get rid of my account.
Well, thank you guys so much for being on. We really appreciate it. We did have some questions, but maybe I can tweet them at you, John Z, and try to get responses for next week, if that would be cool.
Totally.
Show her something awesome. That would be really cool. Thank you so much. And guys, I think that we're going to let these guys go. They're super busy making awesome content for us, but we are going to be bringing on a few other community members who were at the Mayhem Begins event. We're just going to talk about our impressions of the event, how much fun we had. Anna and I got to be interviewed, so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So we'll let them go. Are we going to should I throw on a quick commercial, Anna, or we just want to jump right into a Skype call?
Yeah, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll just be right back. So don't go anywhere, and hang out and spam some emotes and, make some jokes. It'll be great. Just chill.
Sounds good. See you guys very soon.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.